In the previous lesson, I explained how you can sequence layers. That is, you can take a number of clips, be they still images or video files or both, from the project panel and turn them into a single composition such that those clips play one after the other. All the clips reside on separate layers, but they play in sequence. Or you can take a bunch of layers in a timeline and have them play in sequence. But what I want to show you here is something different. Here we're going to take a bunch of images and create a single asset, a single layer that plays a bunch of images in a sequence. To follow along, just open up After Effects, and then just click Close in the Welcome screen. And the first order of business here is to do some housekeeping. I want to change a preference. So in Windows, go to Edit Preferences, and Mac, go to After Effects Preferences, like so, and then go to Import. When you get there, you're going to see that sequence footage is 30 frames per second. That's the default setting, unless you've changed it. Well, we need to change this to whatever your television standard is, or whatever output you want to have for your project. So for NTSC, that's 2997. So I'm going to go to 29.97 frames per second here for NTSC. If you're doing PAL, you can do 25. If you're doing a film output, you can do 24 or whatever you want. But I'm doing this on purpose because when we create the sequence will be set at 2997 frames per second. Then we automatically create a new comp, and it will be the proper rate for our television standard. But then later, I can change the rate of the sequence, not of the comp, but of the sequence, such that it plays at a different rate within the comp, but I can retain the comp's frame rate to make sure it still complies with the standard that I'm working in. I think you'll see how that works in a moment as we go forward here. Click OK. So let's import that sequence, and to do that, just double-click here inside the project panel. I want you to go to this folder. This image sequence folder is inside the other assets, inside the working files. So working files, other assets, image sequence. Select the first image here, and make sure this checkbox for TIFF sequence is checked. And then when we click Open, After Effects will bring in all 11 images as a single sequence. Here we go. And there's that sequence. It has this special icon there telling you this is a sequence. And it's 11 images long, and it's called sequence because that was the name of the image file. We could name it whatever we want, but there we go. And to see how this works, just double-click on it to open it up in the footage panel. You see that it's 11 frames, one frame for each image. And if I play this, it's going to play at 2997 frames per second. Let's just say 30, just to round it off. So it's going to play at about 30 frames per second, so it's going to play the sequence about 3 times per second. So it's a little fast right now. It's just repeating through here over and over again, playing this 11 frame thing 3 times per second. What we want to do is slow that down later, but first we need to create a comp from the sequence. If I were to take the sequence now and drag it down to the new comp icon, we would create a comp that's 11 frames long. Not really what we want to do. So the first thing we need to do is have this sequence loop. We want it to loop a number of times and then create the comp from that. There are a couple ways to do that. You can either right-click on this and say Interpret Footage Main, or you can click on the little Interpret Footage button down here with that guy selected. So I got that guy selected, click on the Interpret Footage button. That opens up this dialog box, which would have opened if we had taken the other route. And down here under Other Options, it says Loop. So how many times do we want it to loop? Well, just think about this for a second. If we want to have this guy run for about 30 seconds, and it's going to go through its 11 frames 3 times per second, then basically we need it to loop around 100 times, we'll say, just to round figures, to end up with something more than 30 seconds worth of video. So we'll put on 100 loops here just to be safe. And now I need to close out of this and notice that this box is bigger than the screen here. So I'll press Tab to get down to the OK, and then I can click OK like that. So now we have this thing set up so it's 36 seconds long. So it's going to loop 100 times. And that's the frame size, 375 by 244. Okay. Let's make a new comp from this. So if I take this guy and drag it to the new comp icon, click there, I can play it now. It'll be just as fast. It's playing at the same speed, 30 frames per second, meaning it's looping 3 times per second, which is too fast. If I take a look at the comp, look at its values there, you see that the comp is 2997, 36 seconds long. It's the same as the sequence. Now I want to go back to the sequence settings and change its frame rate, but not to change the frame rate of the comp, which is a good thing. It's nice that you can do this after the fact. So I'm going to right-click on this and choose Interpret Footage this way rather than clicking on the button just to show you the other way. Click on that Main. And right here it says frame rate. Assume this frame rate. Well, this is 2997 that was picked up because we changed preferences, and you might be doing PAL, which says 25 or whatever frame rate you set. But now we want to slow this thing down. We want to have a slower frame rate. instead of having what amounts to 30 frames per second, meaning 3 loops per second. Let's bring it down to like 10 frames per second, because that would be perhaps more realistic. So I'll go 10 frames, meaning it'll loop once per second. And we'll see how it plays back now. Ah, much better. But maybe that might even be too slow, right? So you can go back and change it again. So I'll click on this, make it active, click on this button to take the other route to the interpret footage dialog box, and change this to, let's say, 15 frames per second, which means it'll loop twice per second, essentially, since there are 11 frames in there for one full loop. There we go. So let's take a look at how this looks. Yeah, I think that's more realistic. It's more like a real speed, I think. But what's cool about this is how you can fine-tune it after the fact while you still retain the proper frame rate for the comp. So that is how you can take a collection of images and turn them into a sequence as a single asset such that you can change the frame rate as you wish.